Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Phoenix Comicon welcome to the man that Gene Roddenberry called the conscience of Star Trek. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Leonard Nimoy.
And it's sort of imitation of me. Oh, she was very good. She was very good. Yeah. Am I doing a voice in the new Transformers film? Yes, I am. The voice of Central Prime. And what's the status of the next Star Trek movie? I believe they'll start filming sometime later this year. Star Trek went on the air, can you believe it, in 1966. 1966. 45 years ago. And I wasn't really prepared for it. I didn't know how to prepare for it. I had been acting in films and television for about 15 years, but I had never had a character that had the impact that Spock was going to have on an audience. I had no idea what to anticipate. I hadn't even bothered to change my telephone number. My phone number was in the Los Angeles telephone directory. You could call me if you wanted to. A lot of people did. And it took a little getting used to. There were fans waiting outside the studio gate at the end of the day, waiting to follow you home and rip the shrubbery off, pick up the shrubbery. And this came from Leonard Nimoy's house. This piece of great. Can you prove it? No, but I was there. So it was from his house. Yeah. So it got a little crazy, and I had to be snuck in and out of restaurants and theaters and so forth. So I had an invitation to go. Some of you probably heard me tell this story before, but bear with me. I had an invitation to go to speak at a college in Billings, Montana. And were you there? A long time ago. Anyway, I decided to go because I thought it would be peaceful, get away from Hollywood, and I went to Billings, Montana to speak at this college, and I ran to the airport that drove me to a local motel, and I was in the room 5 minutes unpacking when the phone rang. I couldn't imagine who could be calling me. But, what do you know? Sneak right in on me. The phone rang and I picked it up and answered it. Hello. And a young female voice said, "Hi, is this Mr. Nimoy?" I said, "Yes." Oh my God! Oh! I can't believe it! Oh yeah, hi! She said, "You're such a big Star Trek fan." I said, "Who are you?" She said, "My name is Sally." I said, "Where are you calling me from?" She said, "St. Louis." "How did you find me?" I said, "I heard you were going to be speaking at Billings, and I called all the hotels and motels. There's only 3. Sally, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the call. There's some people waiting for me, and I've got to go now. So goodbye, and keep watching the show, and thank you very much. I finished packing. I was getting to the door. Not 3 minutes later, the phone rang again. I picked it up, another female went, "Oh, hi, is this Mr. Nimoy?" Yes. "Oh, wow, I got him! I got him on the phone! I got him!" "Who are you?" Mary, where are you calling me from? She said, Denver. Mary, how did you find me? She said, my friend Sally called me from South. I grew up in Boston in a tenement neighborhood, and this is how it works. Yeah, that's the front of the building where I grew up, and the lady on the left. The lady on the left is my grandmother, and I lived in that building for the first 18 years of my life. And these were some of the guys I used to hang around with on the corner. You had to have a white shirt to be in this gang. That's me on the far left. I was lucky to grow up in Boston. It was a great city. Lots of academia and lots of museums and a lot of art, theaters and music and what have you. And very close to where I lived, about 2 blocks away, there was what we call a settlement house. 5-story brick building with all kinds of classes, designed for immigrants. It was built in the 1910s, 15s, 20s. Immigrant people would go there to learn various things they needed to learn, including English classes, because most of the immigrants spoke Italian or Yiddish or various foreign languages. And they had a theater. They had a sports program and a science program, but they also had a beautiful little theater. And I first stepped out on that stage when I was 8 years old, and in a production of Hansel and Gretel, and I played Hansel. And this theater had a beautiful embroidered curtain, and it was a forest scene. And at the bottom, in very beautiful Gothic letters, it said, "Act well your part, bear all honor lives." And I took that very seriously. I think that's very important, to do an honorable job in the part that you play. So it made an impression on me, and I continued to do children's theater there until when I was 17. I was cast for the first time in an adult production of a play called Awakened Seven. This was a play about a Jewish family in the Bronx, very much like my own Jewish family in Boston. There were 3 generations living in an apartment together, the grandparents, parents, and kids. And in this play, I'm playing the 17-year-old juvenile. I was 17 myself, so I really very strongly identified with the character. And this kid in the play was having the same concern that I was having. How do you find out who you're supposed to be in the world? How do you find the right job for yourself? How do you go to the right school? How do you find the right girl for yourself? How do you build a life? And this kid was going through these issues, and so was I. And I thought, if I could do this kind of work for the rest of my life, helping people to understand their lives, illuminating lives for people in the audience, I would consider it very important work, and I would consider myself blessed to be able to do that. So I decided to be an actor. And I went home and I said that to my folks, I'm going to be an actor. Well, it didn't go down so great. You know? My parents were immigrants from Russia. My father was a barber. Decent guy, lived on the street and cut hair for maybe 65 or 70 years of his life. And worked hard, very unsophisticated. I said, Dad, I'm going to be an actor. He said, you'll be hanging around with gypsies and vagabonds. I said, okay. That's the way it has to be. And then he gave me the only advice my dad ever gave me. He was very serious. He said, learn to play the accordion. You can always make a living with an accordion. I didn't take his advice. The last movie that I saw before I left Los Angeles to move to California, the last movie I saw was Shakespeare's Henry V, directed by and starring Laurence O'Neill, considered the greatest actor of the generation. Wonderful movie. And there comes a moment in the movie where Henry is with his troops. They're about to go into battle tomorrow morning. It's the nighttime. Tomorrow morning they're going to fight the French. And they're vastly outnumbered. The French have a lot more soldiers than the English army does. Henry's concerned about the emotional condition of his troops, so he goes out in disguise, kind of put it, like Spock did in Star Trek 3. And he goes out amongst the troops to listen to what they're talking about. And he hears somebody say, "I wish we had more men." And he says, "What's he that wishes so? My cousin? Westmoreland? Nay, cousin," he says, "wish not one man more. If we are marked to die, we are now to do our country loss. But if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor." And I got a chill when I heard that. I said, wow, there's that word again. Then he goes on to say, "By Jove, I am not covetous for gold, nor care I who doth feed upon my cost. It yearns me not offend my garments wear, such outward things dwell not in my desire. But if it be a sin to covet honor, I am the most offending soul alive." I took that very seriously. I thought, honor is going to be an important thing in my life. I've got to pay attention to that. It means something to me. There's a reason it keeps coming at me like this. And I took that in and held it. So in search of honor, I got on the train. I went to California to that great citadel of honor known as Hollywood. Got off the train. I moved into a rooming house. Got myself some 8x10 glossy photographs. Went up and down Sunset Strip where all the agencies were, knocking on doors trying to get an agent. And before too very long, a matter of months, I found myself on a soundstage acting in a movie. And I thought, what? Here I am. There's a camera, the sound department, costume, makeup, sets, crew. I thought, wow, I'm in a movie. It's great. I thought this is going to rocket me to stardom. And to this day, I can't quite figure out why it didn't quite work out that way. It was called a wonderful project called Zombies of the Stratosphere. There were, I think, 4 of us. We landed in a spaceship that staggered across the screen and left a trail of smoke. And we stole a pickup truck and a couple of Colt 45 revolvers and announced we're going to take over Earth. That's me. And that job was followed by another great hit, Attack of the Brain Eaters. That was my second job. So my career looked like it was quickly swirling around the drain hole and going down the drain. I went to work at various jobs. I sold life insurance, I sold vacuum cleaners, I worked in an ice cream parlor, I serviced fish tanks in people's homes and doctors' offices. Here comes the fish doctor, they used to say. I heard that too many times. Then I got a 2-year job in the United States Army. There I was standing in front of a desk, a corporal sitting behind the desk at a typewriter. You remember typewriters. And he said to me, "What do you do in civilian life?" I said, "I'm an actor." And he said, "Oh, tell me what I might have seen you in." Zombies of the Stratosphere. Click, 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 click. Infantry. Okay. I came out of the Army 2 years later. By that time I was married. I had a child. I had another one on the way, and I had to go to work immediately to produce some income before I could get my acting career going again. And one night I was driving a taxi in West Los Angeles to the job of cab driving, and I got a call to go pick up Mr. Kennedy at the Bel Air Hotel. And being from Massachusetts, the Kennedy name meant something to me. It was 1956. And the man that came out to get into my cab was Jack Kennedy, John F. Kennedy. And he was not known nationally. Later that year, he made an important speech at the Democratic Convention. He got some national attention. But when he stepped into my cab, hardly anybody knew him in California. And I said, "How are things in Massachusetts, Senator?" And he was interested. "Oh, it's great, somebody recognized him." Are you from Massachusetts? Yes. Where? Boston. Where in Boston? I said, the West End. He knew the area very well. He had an office just about 2 or 3 blocks from where I live on Beacon. He was on Beacon Hill. And he said, what are you doing out here? And there I dropped a taxi. I said, I'm an actor. He said, a lot of competition in your business. I said, yes. He said, just like mine. Keep in mind, he said, there's always room for one more good one. I took that in and held on to it. It meant a lot to me, but keep that in mind. 4 years later, he was elected president, and 3 years after that, he was gone. Anyway, these are great memories, and I hold them dearly. I was invited to come out to Republic Studios for a meeting with a producer. He said, do you ride? And I said, no, I'm not a car. Do you ride? Horses, we do westerns. Well, I made a mistake. I hadn't learned yet. I said, no, I don't ride. He said, you better learn because we do westerns. I've learned very quickly that when you're an actor, you go on audition, whatever they ask you, can you do, you say yes. And you drop off a ship like 100 feet into the water and swim 300 yards, kill a shark, and climb back onto the ship? Yes. Done it many times. I learned to ride. I worked in Gunsmoke. I worked in Wagon Train. I worked in Rawhide with Clint Eastwood. I worked in Bonanza. Give me the Army. I think the only one that looks authentic in a Western is DeForest Kelley. Cowboy Shatner? I don't think so. And Jimmy Doohan is a laughing Indian? I don't think so. Anyway, here I am. I did a lot of them. I played some bad Indians. I don't think I did them badly. They were bad people. You know? I played Indians so bad, Indians wouldn't play them. Anyway, there was a way of learning, a way of making a living, and then in 1960, I acted in a play called Death Watch, which was a very successful play in Los Angeles, and a lot of the industry people came to see this. And then we made the film in 1964, and a lot of the industry people came, and I started working very steady after that. The man on the right in the uniform was Robert Ellenstein, who I was able to hire later to play the president of the Federation in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. And this was the play called Death Watch, and after that, it was a big career lift. I was in Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Dr. Kildare, Perry Mason, and eventually a series called The Lieutenant, produced by Gene Roddenberry. And now after Trains and Horses, we're talking about starships. So, I got a call one day after I'd done this episode with The Lieutenant. My agent called me and said, Gene Roddenberry saw the footage and he's interested in you for a pilot, for a television series, science fiction that he's going to make. And he'll be in touch. And I thought, well, okay, I've been working pretty good by then, so I kind of took it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of maybes. And maybe he's going to cast me in it, maybe he's going to make the pilot, maybe he'll cast me in it, maybe the pilot sells, maybe the network will keep me in the show, maybe it'll get picked up on more than 3 or 4 episodes. There's a lot of maybes. But when he called a couple months later and asked for a meeting, I went and I thought, okay, now he's going to audition me or whatever. When I got there, he walked me around the various departments. He showed me the sets being built. He showed me the costumes being designed. He showed me the props, the tricorder, and the communicator, the phaser, and the makeup department. And he said, you'd be wearing pointed ears. And I thought, oh. Anyway, I realized that he was now selling me on this job. I wasn't there to be auditioned. I had this job if I wanted it. All I had to do was keep my mouth shut and I could go to work. So it was a little scary, but what attracted me, the ears and all of that, it could have been a bad joke. But what attracted me was when he said, this character is going to be a Vulcan from the planet Vulcan. He's going to look alien, going to look different. He's going to have a human mother and a Vulcan father. And he's going to have an internal life that consists of a battle between his emotions and his logic. And he's going to try to live as a Vulcan. to suppress the emotional side of his persona and live as a Vulcan, unemotionally. And I thought that's an interesting challenge for an actor, and it sounds like it might be an interesting role to play. So I took the job, and we went to work. And this is one of the first photographs that was ever taken of us. Actually shot summer of 1966, before we even went on the air. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but somebody said, go outside, there's somebody who wants to talk to you guys. We walked out, and somebody took this photograph. And this is in the makeup department, Dee Kelly in the chair. And I've got my makeup on, the eyebrows and the ears and so forth, but obviously still wearing my civilian clothes. And the work was intense. Once in a while we had a laugh. The work was very intense. I was there 12 hours a day. I got there in the makeup chair at 6:30 in the morning and walked out of the studio, drove out at 6:30 at night every day. The days were long, the work was hard, it took a lot of energy. In the afternoons at 3 or 4 o'clock, in order to stay sharp and on my game, I started gulping honey to give myself an extra surge of energy. We did some very, very interesting episodes, as I'm sure you know and understand. We had an episode where Kirk was split into two personalities. I think it was called The Enemy Within. Malfunction in the transporter. He comes up as a kind of a meek, mild-mannered Kirk, and he comes up as a nasty Kirk. So it's our version of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. And there comes a moment in the story where the evil Kirk has a phaser and he's going to shoot the mild Kirk. And if he does that, we'll never get Humpty Dumpty back together again. And the writer had written that Spock comes up behind the bad guy and hits him over the head with the butt of his phaser. And I said to the director, I don't think that's appropriate for the 23rd century science fiction. If we're doing Gunsmoke, that might work. You know? So what do you want to do? And I said, well, Spock is a graduate of the Vulcan Institute of Technology. And he took courses in human anatomy. And Vulcans have a certain kind of energy on their fingertips, which if applied appropriately to the pressure points on a human, would render him unconscious. Director said, oh, really? You watch the way this works. And I came up behind Bill Shatner, and I did that, and I went like that, and dropped to the floor, and that's where the Vulcan neck pinch was born. It was a big success. A lot of people asked me to teach them how to do it so they could do it to their kids. We came to an episode that was a very beautiful script written by a wonderful science fiction writer named Theodore Sturgeon, a script called Amok Time, which was really very poetic. And it was an interesting script for the Spock character because we were going to go to Vulcan for the first time, to Spock's home planet, and we were going to see other Vulcans for the first time. Spock was the only Vulcan we had seen up to that point. And Spock had to get home to fulfill a marriage betrothal. Spock was in heat. That was once every 7 years, you know that. And quite an event, actually. Well worth waiting for. So we get to the planet, and there's the three of us, DeForest, Kelly, and Bill, and myself, and Spock has to be married. And a lady that's going to conduct the marriage ceremony is being carried in a sedan chair at the head of a procession. And we learn that she's a very, very important person. She's the matriarch of Vulcan planet. A character named T'Pau, played by a wonderful Viennese actress named Cedar. And they set her down. I'm to approach her. And she says, welcome home, Spock. And I'm supposed to say something like, it's nice to be here. I don't remember exactly what I was supposed to say. But I said to the director, I think that we should have something that Vulcans do when they greet. I'm looking for ways to build interesting aspects of the Vulcan culture. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, humans, we shake hands with each other when we meet. Asians bow to each other. Military people salute each other. Vulcans should have a greeting of some kind. I said, what do you want to do? Well, I reached back into my childhood as a Jewish kid in Boston going to the synagogue on the high holidays with my family. I'm sitting with my grandfather and my father and my brother in the men's section. And there comes a point in the service where the Kohanim, they're called, they're the members of the priestly tribe of the Hebrews, get up to bless the congregation. And the blessing is one that we know from the Old and the New Testament. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his countenance to shine upon you. May the Lord turn his graciousness unto you and grant you peace. So these guys are up there, and they're going to bless the congregation. And my dad says to me, don't look. So I'm 8 years old, and there's something strange going to happen, so I snuck a peek. And these gentlemen up there they're in kind of an ecstasy, almost like a revival meeting. They're shouting this prayer, chanting it and shouting it in Hebrew, 5 or 6 of them. And I snuck this peek, and what I saw looked something, this is a demonstration of me showing you what they look like. Like that. They've got their heads covered with their prayer shawls, and their hands out over the congregation, towards the congregation like that, see? And it's a magical thing. Every time I do that, flash bulbs go off. Can't stop it. And I had no idea why they were doing that, but it kind of struck me something interesting was happening. So I immediately started to work to learn to be able to do that with my hands. And I spent years of diligent practice and self-denial to master that. I could do it right hand, left hand, anytime, any place. Do it. I never knew it would come in handy someday. Anyway, I said to the director, maybe Vulcans do that. He said, okay. I learned later that this is the shape of the letter Shin, which is a letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which is the first letter in the word Shalom, which means peace. It's also the first letter in the word Shaddai, which is a name for the Almighty. Now, I learned much later that they're not supposed to look because the legend is that during that blessing, the Shekinah, the feminine aspect of God, comes into the sanctuary to bless the congregation. And that's a deity. She gives off the light of a deity, and you dare not see that. It might be too powerful. It could injure you badly, and even worse. So you protect yourself by covering your eyes and not looking. But I snuck a peek and I survived. That was it. Anyway, the director said to Suzyalowski, the actress, Leonard is going to do that as he approaches you, and you'll return the gesture. The only problem was that she had not spent the years of devotion. We had a problem with her, but we managed. She held her right hand in shape with her left hand like that. And she held it out of sight of the camera. So she was ready. When I raised my hand, she raised hers, and that's how we got it into the show. This photograph was taken. Photograph of my son, myself, my son Adam. They came to visit me one day on the set. They snuck him off into the makeup department. They put the ears on him. They sent him out on the set. It surprised me. Fan mail. The fan mail was coming in stacks. It started out with packages, and I was signing every photograph and signing notes and responding to each letter. And then it was coming in stacks, and I couldn't handle it on my own. I needed help, and it was getting to be expensive, the postage and the photographs and so forth. So I asked Desi Lou for some help, and they gave me a stipend of $100 per episode to pay for the handling of the fan mail. And then I got this talking to a couple of people here. You want to talk to a couple of people? Say hello. Okay. several weeks we've been consulted with respect to the operation in regard to your personally handling your fan mail. And we have iterated ourselves with regard to the agreement that was made with respect to our obligations to you in this connection. For purposes of clarification to you and others receiving copies of this memo, I would like to iterate the agreement that we made. We agree, in addition to your compensation, to pay you $100 toward your secretary and equipment needs for your personally handling the fan mail. It is not intended, nor was it specifically agreed, that we would furnish you with pens, pencils, etc., which we assume you would furnish yourself. So, on the next day, I thought a memo like that calls for an answer. And the next day I sent a memo and I said, thank you very much for taking the time to send me the memo clarifying our agreement with regards to fan mail supplies, etc. I hasten to assure you that we will no longer need to make requests in this area for some time, since my secretary and I have gone to various offices around the studio and managed to steal all the pens and pencils. Well, we had 3 seasons, as you know. People are always surprised when I say we only lasted 3 seasons. People were shocked. They think we had many more seasons than that. No. 3 seasons. The 3rd season was very tough. Our good producers were gone, the writers were gone, we had new staff, and didn't quite get the show as well as the first people had, and the show stumbled to a close and we were canceled at the end of the 3 seasons. And then I was hired onto Mission Impossible. And I had some fun for a while. That's me with Leslie Ann Warren in one of the episodes, and I got to play this magician in Mission Impossible. I always wanted to be a magician as a kid, and here I was a magician on Mission Impossible. I had a good time doing it. It was interesting work. I got to play European dictators, South American dictators, Asian dictators. And then after a while, I got to be, again, European dictators, South American dictators. And I got kind of bored, frankly. And I said, I think I've got enough of this. Please let me out. And they did. And then I went back to school to study photography. I began to wonder if I might change careers because I had had more success than I ever expected as an actor. And I thought there's a career there for me if I wanted, but I want to explore this photography thing, which I had loved since I was a teenager. So I went to school and I studied photography and I started carrying cameras around. And so this was some of the early work that I did. That's a picture of my parents that I shot at that time. And very indicative of their nature, my mother was a very curious person. She would stop to look to see what was on the other side of that wall. My dad just kept right on walking. And this is a self-portrait that I did, which is now in the permanent collection at the Los Angeles County Museum. I have worked in various museums around the country, in galleries around the country, and shows at various times. And then I went to Spain to act. I decided to stay with the acting career. I realized that I didn't want to do commercial photography. I didn't want to be shooting fashion photography and cosmetics and that kind of thing. I wanted to do what's known as fine art photography, which translates to you cannot make a living at it. So I stuck with the acting career. I went off to Spain to act in a western called Catlow with the old Brenner. And this was me on the set with the director, Sam Waterman, on the left. And then carrying cameras in Spain. This was some of the photography work that I was doing at the time, landscapes and so forth. The street in Almeria on the southern coast of Spain where we were filming. And then I went on tour in a production of Fiddler on the Roof. I played Tevye. That's me on the East Coast doing Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof. And then I went to Israel to work with Ingrid Bergman. This was interesting. This was a movie about Golda Meir, the lady who was the president of Israel. And I was asked to play this character who was her husband. And when I was first told about the role, I thought, well, I wasn't terribly attracted to it. He was a kind of tag-along kind of guy. Nice man, I'm sure. She was the power in the relationship. She said, I want to go over there and become part of that new nation. And he said, well, gee, things are nice here in Milwaukee, you know. And she said, well, I'm going. He said, okay, if you're going, I'll go too. And I was asked to play this role, and I said, I don't know. Do I know how to enter into that character? I don't know if I could figure out a way to play that character. Then they said, well, that's too bad because you'll be playing opposite Ingrid Bergman. Oh, I might be able to figure this out. One of the great actresses in films, and one of my favorite all-time movies, Casablanca. She was that wonderful leading lady in Casablanca, and so many other great films. Great actress, and I got to act with her in this role. It was a great thrill. And then, in Days of the Body Snatchers, Donald Sutherland and Jeff Goldblum. And then to Morocco, where I played Samuel, and here I am anointing David, the new king of the Israelites. So I had some interesting work to do. And then in 1977, I was on Broadway for the second time, this time in a production of Equus. Great play. 16 weeks of great thrill doing that role. I had a wonderful time doing it. And while I was doing it, I heard about this great new film, very exciting, big hit that had just opened, big crowds, and very successful film. And I went to a theater in the afternoon. I was working with the play at night. Went to a theater in the afternoon in Times Square. Gigantic theater packed with people screaming and cheering and having a wonderful time. They're watching a movie called Star Wars. All through the 70s, there was no Star Trek production being done. There was a hunger for Star Trek. Star Trek was very popular in reruns, and a lot of people wanted Star Trek to be produced, but there was no Star Trek being made for various reasons. And probably because the studio didn't think there was any money in it. When they saw this big hit that George Lucas had with Star Wars, and I'm in the theater watching this gigantic hit, and I thought to myself, I think I'm going to be getting a call from Paramount Pictures very soon. And sure enough, they called us, and we went to work to make a movie. We made the cast, assembled. We had great shots of the ship going by. And there was another great shot of the ship going by like that. And it was Star Trek, the motion picture. There was no plan for any more. I mean, that one made the movie. So I went, okay, well, that's done. And then I got a call, and I was asked would I be interested in doing another Star Trek movie, and for a much lower budget. And I thought, I'm going to squeeze this apple once more, get a little more juice out of it. And I said, how would you like to have a great death scene? Well, okay, this is probably going to be the last movie. Why not go out in a blaze of glory, saving the crew and the ship, and we did that. And I went to see that movie with an audience for the first time. And we come near the end of the film, and Scotty calls, Kirk calls down to Scotty in the engine room. Scotty, we need 4 minutes, we need warp speed in 4 minutes or we're all dead. No answer from Scotty in the engine room. And Spock gets up, goes out into the elevator door, and I know where he's going. He's going down to the engine room to save the ship and die. And I really didn't want to watch this, but I thought I'd better sit right here in my seat, or people, if I leave, people think I hate the movie. It's a good movie, very good movie. And I really think I made a terrible mistake letting myself die in this movie. And so we see the death scene, which was very moving. And then there's the eulogy, and Spock's tube is going down the rail, and Kirk is saying, for all the souls that I've met in my travels, his was the most human. And so they shoot the tube out into space, and it lands on the Genesis planet. And then we see some footage that was never in the original script. We see the camera panning through some foliage and some mist, and it comes to rest on, guess what? The tube containing Spock's remains. I think I'm going to be getting a call from Sure enough, they called and made, the next one was Star Trek 3, which I directed, and then they asked me to do another one, and I did Star Trek 4. This moment in Star Trek 4 came because one day when we were preparing the script, I was walking down Columbus Avenue in New York on a hot summer day, and suddenly there's this loud, very loud blast of bad rock music. And I take a look, and there's this punker carrying this big box on his shoulder. He's got this thing blasting at an 11, you know. I mean, just destroying everybody's tranquility on the street. Everybody's angry, including me. And I thought, if I could pinch his brains out, I would. So that's how I got my back there, Adam. I put this in the movie. One of my favorite moments. And the movie was obviously, it's one of my favorite of all the Star Trek movies. I really enjoyed making it. We had a great time. And then I directed 3 Men and a Baby. I didn't know he directed that. Yeah, so Gutenberg and dancing and Miraculous Baby. We had a wonderful time making that movie. Had a great time. John Delancey and I got together for some projects called Alien Voices. We did some radio performances of various science fiction classics and had a great time. So all I wanted was to make a living as an actor. I did set out to be one more good one. I believed in being a good one. We're going to do it. Let's be as good as we possibly can. I had a great, great run. And honor, well, I do have 4 Emmy nominations and several Lifetime Achievement Awards and 4 honorary doctorates and plenty of popularity. It's great. It's been a great, great run. Popularity is great, but Victor Hugo reminds us that popularity is the crumbs of greatness. So just keep your head in check. And do I have an identity issue? Of course. If somebody yells Spock on the street, it's my head that turns. I have walked alone, seeking answers. I have lived alone, chasing dreams. I have tried to prove my worth to worthless judges. I have cried my pain in silent screams. I have been sometimes served a touch of kindness. I have wandered in golden fields of grace. I have been released by honest laughter. I have touched the western wall of the holy place. I have soared alone above the cloud heads. I have walked the deep, dark tunnels of the earth. I have dined with mystics and with prophets. I have heard the pain of woman giving birth. I have been sought after as a teacher. I have been refused the laurel wreath. I have heard the thunder blast of sunrise. I have watched the final touch of death. I have played the rules set by the master, though often I didn't understand the game. I have worn more masks than I remember. I have been a face without a name. And when, like you, I ask the final question, who on earth am I supposed to be? I always come full circle to the answer, me, only me, always me. I was at a party a while back, a bunch of Hollywood people, crowded room. I felt a pair of hands on my shoulders from behind, and a voice whispered in my ear, I recognize you. And your ears fixed. And it was John Wayne. I believe in living a creative life. I believe in bringing more to to the party. I believe in showing up and using both sides of my brain. I believe in being passionate about my work. In recent years, photography has been my passion for the last 14, 15 years. My work is now in permanent museum collections around the country. I published a book called Shafina, which is based on this symbol, and it's about the feminine aspect of God. And I published a book called The Full Body Project, which is about body image in our culture, the Full Body Project. And most recently, I did a project called Secret Self. I read a story on the internet a while ago that I found quite intriguing. Aristophanes, famous playwright and philosopher in ancient Greece, said at a symposium conducted by Sophocles, a symposium where a lot of guys sitting around drinking a lot of wine, talking about humanity, and the subject of human angst came up, human anxiety, a human sense of being sort of incomplete somehow, something missing, something you want in your life that's not quite completely there. And Aristophanes had an explanation. He said, this is a very fanciful idea of his. He said humans at one time we were double people. We were all attached, double, back to back, in various combinations. And humans became very powerful. And the gods became angry, and they sent Zeus to solve the problem, which he did by taking a big sword and splitting everybody in two, and sending them on their separate paths. And ever since then, said Aristophanes, humans have been looking for the other part of themselves in the hopes of reintegrating to make themselves feel whole again. And that's the reason, he said, we have angst, we have this anxiety, this sense of being incomplete. So I did a project called Secret Self, based on that story. I photographed 100 people in various aspects of they were invited to come and be photographed as their secret or hidden or fantasy self. And we got some great people doing some wonderful things. Some of it was very funny. This was a wonderful young woman who said that she was the daughter of a preacher, and they traveled from town to town. As a kid, she had to be on her best behavior all the time. She was a preacher's daughter. So she felt that she had missed her real childhood, and now as an adult she wanted to try to recapture her childhood. So she made herself this dinosaur outfit, and that's the way she came to be photographed. And this was our cover of the catalog of the show. The show was at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art for about 6 months. And he is a painter. He paints portraits of people who've been in war, and he interviews them and writes about them. And his secret desire is to live as part of the earth, to live in the woods away from any conflict, away from anything that has to do with fight or conflict. So he came totally covered from head to toe with mud and leaves, just like that. And then we had this young guy, this young fellow, his grandmother made him this cape when he was born. He's carried it all his life. He was in the Navy for 6 years. He had that cape in his locker in the Navy for 6 years. Superman. The wonderful people came with these great stories. So, as a photographer, I had street credibility. My wife and I were on our way home from an event in Los Angeles a few months ago, walking to the parking lot with Tom Hanks. And the young fellow recognized him, came running up with a camera, said, "Mr. Hanks, can I have my picture taken with you?" And Tom Hanks said, "Sure, who's going to take the picture?" Now the young guy recognizes me. And he said, "Oh, Mr. Nimoy, you're a wonderful photographer. Will you take the picture?" I said, "You got it." I took the picture, and that young man now has a picture of himself with Tom Hanks, taken by Leonard Nimoy. Whatever work we do, we're all involved in a creative process. Every day of our lives, we are creative in some way. We get up and make a day out of it in some way. We make creative choices every day, all day long. We are involved in a creative process. And this is a crater that I have on the wall in my office at home. I see it every day. I heard the solemn whisper of the God of all arts. I shall give you hunger and pain and sleepless nights. Also, beauty and satisfaction known to few, and glimpses of the heavenly light. None of these shall you have continually, and of their coming and going you shall not be foretold. And that pretty much sums up the life of the artist. I am an incurable romantic. I believe in hope, dreams, and decency. I believe in love, tenderness, and kindness. I believe in mankind. I believe in goodness, mercy, and charity. I believe in the universal spirit. I believe in casting bread upon the waters. I am awed by the snow-capped mountains, by the vastness of the oceans. I'm moved by a couple of any age holding hands as they walk through city streets. A living creature in pain makes me shudder with sorrow. A seagull's cry fills me with a sense of mystery. A river or stream can move me to tears. A lake nestling in a valley can bring me peace. I wish for all mankind the sweet, simple joy that we have found together. I know that it will be, and we shall celebrate. We shall taste the wine and the fruit, celebrate the sunset and the sunrise, the cold and the warm, the sounds and the silences, and the voices of the children. Celebrate the dreams and hopes which have filled the souls of all decent men and women. We shall lift our glasses and toast with tears of joy. My friends, I mean it sincerely when I say to you, may each and every one of you live long and prosper. Thank you.